Sorry for interrupting you. So, right in the midst of that incredible story in Shallow Hal and how you felt that that was happening for you as well, and about people's perspective, what they see as beauty and what, is beauty for each individual person. But you were really, my understanding was that you were really trying to find somebody who was beautiful on the inside as well for you to be able to connect with and to really understand at a deeper level. Is that correct? Or
I think that. But I when I met Sal, I told him about all the work I was doing and all that I was wanting, and like read him my whole affirmations. I believe he tried to become what I was saying I wanted.
oh, not who he really
Right,
was.
right. And I think who really
Oh,
he really is not a nice guy. And
oh,
that's what I think, and that's why, because I don't think in the end of this, I have never said all the things I could feel to say to him. And he wrote me some terrible, 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 horrible things that were very horrible and that were not like I wanted to end up and stay friends with him. But by what he wrote to me and what he was saying to me means he's not my friend. And now I can't trust him because he is not my friend. And because of that, I don't want to talk to him.
Don't you think, though, that when he probably felt very hurt, because I have a feeling that you terminated the relationship. So sometimes I think when we feel hurt and rejected, it shows up in form of anger and resentment, and we say and do things that we later on regret, but that it may not necessarily be a reflection of who we truly are. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, but I didn't terminate it.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I was praying on that trip that we would come home and have a conversation, and I knew I was going to terminate it, but I wanted it to be calm and peaceful, and I kept praying it's going to be calm and peaceful, and it'll be okay. And then I knew we got home late that night, and I said to myself, we'll do it in the morning because I don't have enough bandwidth to do it now. And I'm taking a bath, and he comes in the bath and he says, I'm going to my daughter's for 6 weeks in Colorado. And I went, wow. And I said, wow, I don't have to have that conversation, and that's calm and easy. And I went, okay, that's great. And then in the morning, he's like, I said, we never had a conversation. He says, well, do you want to have it now? And I said, yeah. I said, you said you're going to go on for 6 weeks for the summer. And I said, but I think that you should make it permanent.
Ooh.
And that was my only comment. And then he went, well, that was a good run. And then he was gone within a day like a bat out of hell. And I thought I needed passwords, I needed information, I needed so much stuff, and just gone. That was it. And so then when I was on my trip, I started to feel that I couldn't trust him, and I did not want him to know I was gone. So I did not post any pictures while I was gone. And all of a sudden he sends me this, he says, well, you had all this time to think. What are you thinking about the relationship? And I went, what do I think about the relationship? I think the relationship is over. I said, I didn't even notice you were gone, truthfully and sadly. So, if I was devastated and sad and whatever, I was nothing and none of those things. And I just want to thank you for wonderful years and our trips and all that you've given me with my family, and thank you. And that's how I ended that conversation. And then I went to bed, and our times are different. And then I woke up at 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom, and I said, don't look at the phone, but I look at the phone. And then he comes up with, I need to tell you that we were in Mexico for 5 years, and it means that we're legally married, and went on this whole conversation about that we're really married and that he would have rights to things. And I went, what is he saying? And then because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, I was able to not go back to bed, but I was able to text my niece, and because people were awake at that time. And does he think I'm dumb? And does he think I don't have, what would he think?
Is that the law in Mexico?
No, it's not the law if you haven't registered or haven't said that you're,
Okay.
they call it concubine something, but we did nothing, and there was nothing. I bought the house before we lived there, and there was nothing in his name on anything. So I don't know why he would say that except to upset me. And because of that, it makes me not trust him and not want to have anything to do with him. And that still could come from what you're saying, but I'm feeling it's coming more from seeing what more he could get from me. And that I don't like. And
So you
that's not
think
okay.
he was talking about the marriage in Mexico thing in order to get access to the house?
My house that then I had said, "Oh, I'm going to sell the house," and that's where I think it came from. And so I never thought of him hurting me or being vindictive or vengeful because I wanted nothing. That's why I stayed. I stayed as lovely as I was through all of that, of not getting mad and not saying things I shouldn't say and not saying anything. That I stayed very calm through it. And just because I started to feel that I did not trust him, and that maybe the person I thought he was, he's more looking for
Opportunist.
His last two marriages were 14 years. It's like 14 years and 14 years, and we were 14 years. And because we would talk about it, and I would say, "Oh, I hope we can get past 14 years." But we ended on exactly the date of 14 years. But I just think that was a plan of his. That I fit into his plan. And he would say things when we were together. He would say, we took because I would say, we took this opportunity to be to choose this at this time. It was an opportunity. And I would say because I went in. I was on a cruise that was the law of attraction. It was a law of attraction cruise that I was going on to meet somebody. Hopefully that was in that same philosophy. And so when I met him, I thought perhaps he was from that group, but he was not. He was being a host on his cruise. So, but when I met him, he came into we were having a cocktail party on the cruise, and he just happened to walk into that room. And I had already met him the night before. And I said, "What, are you part of this group?" And he said, "No, what is this group?" And so I was telling him what the law of attraction is. And, Esther Hicks was on it, that was her cruise. And anyway, so he then said, "Oh, I believe in all that," and so that's how I was sharing who I was and why I was there and what I was studying and learning and becoming a life coach for. So it was kind of interesting. So that's what I was very concentrated in, and that's what I was looking for. And so he just became it.
Sort of like a chameleon.
He became what I was looking for, and he was that smart of a man to be able to do that. I feel that. He may not agree with you. He may not say that. But he doesn't, he is like a Brooks Brothers guy with a suit and this, and I'm not that. And I didn't like that. And I'm like a little hippie girl, right? And so he'd always want someone that was much more classier and whatever. And I'd say, how do you feel that you're not with what you really wanted? I'm not the kind of person you were ever looking for. And then he would say things, "Well, I didn't realize that I like this kind of a person," or whatever. But
So what sort of advice would you give to a woman in your situation? To help, to inspire?
Well, it's tough, as a coach, and I was teaching as a coach, so as a coach, and I was doing all the things that I was teaching everybody to do, and so when I came back and said, wow, she really did it, she found the guy and did everything that she's been doing for 10 years. That was pretty exciting, but I didn't.
What do you mean you didn't?
I didn't.
Fine.
I didn't attract the person that I wanted to attract. I didn't. When I came back, all the people I've been coaching, all of they're going, oh my God, that is a great coach, and she did all the things she's been teaching us to do. It took me 10 years to do that. So 10 years of trying to become, not trying, but becoming who I felt I genuinely am. But then I didn't attract that. And that causes me a lot of consternation sometimes. Then who am I? If I'm not as genuine as I want to be, and I want to attract someone who's genuine, and I attract the opposite of that, what does that say about me as a coach? So that actually causes me a lot of consternation and a lot of pause to how do I talk to myself about that, or how do I coach around that? It was easier not, they would all see me going on dates and saying, you have to put yourself out there and you have to make an effort. I know Match and all that stuff I wasn't necessarily going to meet the person on Match, but at least it put the seeds out there and it helped me know what I was looking for. So I felt there was a definite purpose in it, even though I didn't like it. But when this happened, for me to really sit back and take a look at it, I don't know what to say.
But how about looking at the fact that you appear to be comfortable with yourself? And that's major, I believe, for anyone to be comfortable in their own skin. So I can't help but feel that the journey that you have been on, that is the result. You're comfortable, you like being by yourself, you don't feel that you need anybody in terms of a relationship. I mean, isn't that worth the journey that you have just finished, in a way? That you've come to realize that.
Yes, but it makes me look at, where am I still not genuine, that I'm attracting someone who is so not genuine.
But maybe that was the lesson that you needed. Maybe that was what you needed to learn. And he was your teacher for that period of time. And so now you have arrived at being on your own, feeling happy and comfortable. So maybe that was the lesson, and it doesn't have anything to do with you being authentic or otherwise.
And maybe you've been authentic all the way through, and it just took you a while. Why anything takes time, just takes time to realize, oh, this is not someone I'm happy with. This is not really what I want at this point in my life. I don't think that means, it seems to me that you're judging yourself very, very harshly for having been through something which actually you had said had some benefits. All the travel you did, things were good for a period of time. But then you realized there was no depth really to the relationship. He wasn't sharing, he wasn't being open and honest with you. And you saw that more clearly. Some people stay in that forever. They do. Mm-hmm. They stay in relationships like that forever. And you got to a place of saying, oh, wait a minute. The benefits are not outweighing. Wait, maybe I'm saying that wrong. The better benefit was really coming to the realization that he wasn't fulfilling you. And so that's not a judgment about you. That's about him too, but also your awareness that it wasn't working. It wasn't what you wanted at this stage in time in your life.
And I wanted to say, one of the things that Esther Hicks is always saying is the contrast. You have to have the contrast in order to know what you want.
Yes.
And so he was the contrast,
Yes.
because now you know.
But now I feel like I don't want anybody. Like I don't, somebody came up to me, a woman came up to me at the pickleball. I have a man for you. He's perfect for you. He's a vegetarian. I don't want anybody right now. No, but he's perfect. I go, I don't want anybody right now. And she goes, are you sure? I go, I don't want anybody right now.
But what's wrong with that? I mean, just to delight in yourself, like you married yourself, so why not just delight in that? And also, you are not obligated to explain to anybody that you are not in the position or you don't want anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to explain that.
It feels like I felt like each of my two marriages, after the first one, I didn't even feel like I needed to be in my marriage, in my family unit, and by the time when I remarried again, I was so happy to have that family unit back, and feel that felt wonderful in that time period. And then that also wasn't, and when that was over, that's when I spent my time doing all of what I was doing until I was 50 and went out in the street on Christmas Eve, on my birthday, and said, on my 50th birthday, what is wrong with me, with all these men and blah, 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 blah. And that's when I first came to the realization that it's me. That took me till 50 to come to that awareness. So to come now that's a long time to come to that realization for me, to think that it's not about them, and it was about me. And so now, and all that time, I had always still wanted to always be it was like a need. I just did not feel whole, but I just feel so whole now.
So that's an enormous gift that you have gotten from these 14 years. Because you finally reached what you aimed for. And perhaps it took this man to get you there. So that's something to be grateful to him for, as hard as that may be.
I feel that. I understand that. That's how I felt about the guy at 50. I felt, oh my God, that, and I felt like he was the final one, the final straw to make me realize that it's about me, and so.
And I think that's what we all need to come to, that realization. It's about me, right? It's about each of us individually first, coming to the place of loving ourselves. And so few of us do that, especially women.
And what do like when entering into a relationship, the question shouldn't be what is he bringing into it, as much as it should be what am I bringing into the relationship. And just recently I sat next to a gentleman and he was so excited. He was apparently in love and he was going to meet this woman, and he kept saying, she's just the perfect woman, she's the right woman for me. And I said to him, but what about you? Are you the right man? What are you bringing to the table? So he went away, and of course it never materialized. And I really thought a lot of it had to do with his expectation of her being the right woman for him. But what was he offering? Oh. There wasn't really any thought behind that. So I think in a way, if I may say so, you're very fortunate because you arrived at a spot in your life that is so delightful. Being able to be by yourself, I think, is a tremendous gift.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sherri. Thank you for this. Wow, I think there's a lot to contemplate, a lot for us to be thinking about.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.